Welcome to Higher Self Mastery, the podcast for women ready to leave behind who they were told to be and remember who they truly are. I'm your host, Dami Schumacher. This is your space to come home to yourself, to honor the inner pull for more truth and more depth, and more meaning as you enter a new chapter of your life. Together, we're reframing midlife crisis into the midlife magic that it actually is, because this is your rebirth. Through soulful conversations and spiritual tools, you'll reconnect to your truth and reclaim your voice and live the life that your soul came here for. So let's begin. Hello and welcome back to another episode of Higher Self Mastery. I'm your host, Dami Schumacher. Thank you so much for joining me. If you feel like you are doing all of the right things, yet what you seek is still not landing for you, in this episode, you will be reassured that delay is not always denial. And I want to put something out there straight away. Sometimes when we're waiting, it can feel like we are failing or falling behind. But what I'd like you to know is that a no is not always just that. Sometimes it's a not yet. So let's talk about what this actually might be, this waiting period, this in-between stage, and what exactly is happening here. I want you to be able to walk away from listening to this episode and understand what divine timing actually is. You will have heard me speak about it many, many times. I use this phrase a lot, and it's really important that you understand exactly what it is, what I'm saying here, or maybe when you're reading it in a book somewhere. And also, at the end of this episode, you'll be able to walk away with a few checkpoints that you can make alongside the things that you desire, your manifestations, the things that you're calling in, so that you can stay in aligned action without forcing any of these outcomes as well. So let's dive straight into it. Sometimes when we desire something, it is difficult to know whether it's actually coming from our egos or whether it's coming from our soul self, and whether it's actually truly for our highest good. And this is the first thing that I would like to put forward to you. If something that you really truly feel like you desire and want in your life, in whatever area of your life that is, yet you've been working at it, you're doing everything, you're taking all the right action steps, and it's been months, even years perhaps, and it's still not coming to fruition, I would like you to ask yourself, is it truly coming from your higher self, or is it coming from a smaller self, your ego self, where it may be more concerned with proving yourself to other people, to society, your friends, your family, your parents? Is it something that's coming from a place of self-worth, where if you achieve something, then you will feel worthy, then you will feel loved, then you will feel accepted, or that's when you will feel successful? Because those are all ego-driven goals, because there are parts of ourselves that are wounded and still need healing. But by the universe collaborating with us and providing those things for us won't actually fix anything for us. Those wounds would still exist, and that healing would still need to take place. And so sometimes what will happen is that the universe will say, well, actually, no, this isn't in your highest good. It doesn't really serve you. What would serve you here is to take a look at what's really going on underneath here. Take a look at those wounds. Take a look at what you can do to heal here. However, sometimes the things that you might be calling in really truly are coming from your higher self. And still they are not coming into fruition for whatever reason. But perhaps it's more a case of that you are not quite ready yet. And this is really all about timing, as the phrase suggests, divine timing. So it's about the time scale and the expectation that we're placing on when these things should happen, or when these things we would like them to happen. I have talked about this a little bit before, many months ago, when I did the mini manifestation series. And I think it was in the third part about if your manifestations aren't coming into fruition, these are some of the reasons why. And I touch upon timing and holding the timing with an open hand and how important that is to do. So if this is the first time you're coming across this concept and this is new to you and you haven't listened to that episode, and manifestation is something that you also work with as well, I highly recommend going back and having a listen to that episode as well. I'll try and pop that in the show notes for you to make it easy for you to find. So going back to what I was saying is the actual timing of what we want is not necessarily in our highest good when it comes from our egos, because maybe we aren't actually quite ready for what it is we're calling in, and it's not going to benefit us in the long run or help us or truly help us to grow or really give us that fulfillment or that joy or that peace. It doesn't really actually align with our values. So the timing is, as I mentioned right at the beginning, it's not always necessarily a no, it's not going to happen, but rather a case of just not yet, or a yes, but not now. And that's a really different feeling in your body. A no is so absolute and it's like, okay, that's a dead end. But a not yet or a yes, just not now is like, okay, still you can hold it with an open hand, with open arms and say, all right, then I have to then trust that it is going to come to me. I just don't know when or why it's being held back for the time being. And this doesn't mean we stop taking aligned action. It doesn't mean you stop putting the effort in or doing what you're doing. You still need to continue with taking action steps towards what it is you desire. You still have to keep showing up for your part, because in those action steps, in those aligned action, that's where some of the readiness might be taking place. So let me give you an example for this podcast, for example, right? I knew in my vision, in my heart, that it's something that I wanted to do about 5 years ago. And I only just launched my podcast last year in 2025. So it took the best part of 4.5 years or so to actually launch it and get it off the ground. And I could have at some point, and I'm sure I probably did, start to question, is it actually going to happen? And is this really the right thing for me? So I had to do a number of different things. I checked in that it's still aligned with my values. And that's one of the things that I'm going to invite you to do is like, is it truly aligned for you? And if it's still that expansive yes, and it's not coming from my ego, it's coming from my higher self. And not only does it feel expansive for me, but it feels like a really aligned way for me to share my gifts so I can be in service to other people, then that's a massive alignment. That's a huge expansion, right? It's not the desire for having this podcast. It's not so I can walk around and tell people, yes, I have a podcast, I'm a podcast host. That means nothing to me. In fact, it feels a little bit awkward when people have said it to me, oh, you're a podcast host. And I'm like, oh, yes, I guess I am. But that's not what drives me. That's not what motivates me. And so I've had to go back and just check, am I doing it for the right reason? Is it coming from my higher self? It's not performative. It's not to satisfy any part of my ego. It is for a bigger, deeper, more fulfilling reason. So that was a big tick for me. So then why? Why not 4 years ago? Why didn't this podcast launch 4 years ago and why did I have to wait for as long as I did? Well, it's always difficult in that moment to know why. In hindsight, it's always really clear because you're able to then map the trajectory of the journey that you've just gone on and be able to see, well, I did this and then I did that, and I can see how that helped me improve this skill and how that led to this door opening or this collaboration or this contact and these ideas, etc., etc., etc. And then when I did launch the podcast, how it was so much better for it than had I launched it 4 years ago. So in my example was 4-5 years ago, when I set that out in my vision all those many years ago, at that point, I had zero experience speaking online, zero experience speaking as an adult. I'd done some professional speaking in my school days, but that was many, many decades ago. And yes, I'd stood in front of people when I did a little bit of teaching back in Australia, when I used to teach a little bit of yoga, but not really in quite this capacity where I'm sitting, I'm being recorded or anything like that. And I also didn't have the confidence of an online presence, right? So all of that came afterwards through the different things that I did in my business. And I also wasn't as tech savvy. I went through a massive period in my life, maybe a good decade and a half, or maybe a good 2 decades, where I really just avoided technology, full stop. Like when somebody bought me a smartphone as a gift, I looked at it with a little bit of frustration and resistance, like, I don't want this. Like, thank you. Like, I'm really grateful, but I don't want a smartphone. I'm not interested in being globally connected online. I just that's just not for me. And at the time, that was very true. It wasn't really for me, but things changed, right? So the amount of tech savvy skills that I had, or the tech skills that I had 5 years ago, and the skills that I have now are massively different. I have come so far. I have learned to run my business, operate my business across so many different platforms. I've watched and learned and how other people do this too. I've studied it, I've researched it, I've worked with professional coaches, marketing coaches, business coaches. I've done all these different things in between, and listened as well as a consumer to a lot of different content through podcasts, to be able to get a feel for what is it I want to create? How do people do things well, or what is it I like, and maybe how can I recreate that for myself, etc., etc., etc. So then when I've come to create this podcast, 5 years later, I had the right skills, I had the right research, the right knowledge, the right know-how, and still that very aligned motivation and strong why about why I want to put this out there in the world. And it isn't just ego-driven, and it isn't just for me, it is actually for a bigger audience, and it serves other people. So had that happened 5 years ago, maybe I wouldn't have been able to produce something as well as I'm producing now, especially from the back end editing side of things, right? Or when things do go wrong, because believe me, they go wrong more often than not. And then I have to learn a new way to overcome a new technical challenge. And there was a lot to learn. It was a massive learning growth for me, right? But I have the competency and the confidence in myself to do that now, because I've done so much of that already over the last few years. Maybe I would have launched the podcast and didn't really know what it is I want to talk about or who I'm talking to, and jumped around too much, and it would have been really vague, which was a high possibility. Maybe I would have done a month or 2 months of episodes and then just fallen short and then dropped off and wasn't able to stay consistent and committed to it. All sorts of maybes and all sorts of maybes and possibilities, different outcomes that could have come if I had forced the release of the podcast 5 years ago. And now, having launched the podcast in 2025, and now that I've been going for about 6 months, I think now, gosh, that's quite a long time, right? We're recording a mini series from like sort of episode 32 to 34, 35 or something like that. I can look back and say, yes, it was the perfect timing for me to do this now. And even though I wanted it before, I can see now, looking back in hindsight, that actually I wasn't quite ready. I just wasn't ready. So that is just an example of what divine timing is, right? Is being able to trust that sometimes the things that we want are, even if we want them now because we think that's the best thing for us, or that's going to fulfill us, or that's going to satisfy us, it's not always the right thing now. We're not always ready for it because there are a lot of other things, a lot of other growth or maybe healing that needs to take place before we get to the point where we are really safely able to hold a container for the very thing that we're calling in. It doesn't mean you have to work harder or put more effort in. It's not that you're not doing enough. So please don't let it misinterpret the lack of results or the lack of results that manifestations that you're calling in. If they're not showing up for you, they're not arriving in your life. It doesn't mean you're not doing enough or you're not good enough, right? It doesn't mean that at all. But at the same time, don't just stop as well and put your hands up and say, oh, okay, what's the point? Or I'm just going to sit back. I've done my part now, and I'm just going to sit here passively and wait for the universe to catch up. That doesn't work either, right? You've got to continue with the aligned action. You've got to continue taking steps towards what it is you want, because more often than not, the things that we desire, our manifestations, our heart's desires, they arrive in small steps. And it's only when you get to the end outcome that you realize that it was all those little steps that you took that actually brought the results in for you. It isn't just this, you wake up one day and suddenly it lands in your lap. I know that sounds ridiculous, but the way our human mind works and the way that our desires work, that's what we want. We want things now and immediately and just arriving in the palms of our hands. But the reality of that is that you wouldn't be able to contain that. You wouldn't be able to hold that container for it, most likely, or you wouldn't understand what a jolt that might be to your reality, to your lifestyle. So it actually wouldn't be a very good thing. It's all those little steps that we take that we just don't notice, that we are edging closer and closer and closer and closer and closer to it. And then one day you're holding it and you're like, oh, I've arrived. I've got it. This is the thing that I wanted all those many years ago or all those many months ago. You know, the example I give you was some years. It doesn't have to be years. It could be weeks. It could be months. It just depends what it is, right? Big or small, or how much growth and work there is required for you personally around that particular thing that you're calling in. But it is also, I mentioned, really important to check in that it is aligned for you. So what might feel aligned for your values 5 years ago may have changed now. So it is really important to keep going back and checking and making sure that what you're trying to call in and what you desire is still aligned for you and your values right now, and is still for your highest good. So I'll give you another example, something that that hasn't arrived for me yet. Right. And I've had to go back and check in on this quite a bit. And it's a really big manifestation. So again, 5 years ago, when I started this work, in that original vision, I mapped out my dream home. I have visited my dream home in my mind's eye so many times. And because I'm a specific manifester, I can give you the details of the fixtures and fittings and the fabrics and the colors and the floor layout and everything. I have been there so many times in meditations, in that stillness. I live there. When I close my eyes, I live there. That I've often sort of questioned, oh, is this really coming from my ego? Because it hasn't arrived yet. And it's not wrong to have those questions and have that doubt, so to speak, because it is important to go back and check, you know, even if you think it's come from your higher self, after you've done some growth and some learning, you may look back and say, oh, actually, no, that was more ego driven because I still had something that I've needed to prove to myself or to others. And actually, I've worked through that and I've done that healing. And so that's not important to me anymore. So I've had to really go back. And as I still understand it today, it's not coming from my ego. It still feels like something that's really, really expansive for me, and that nourishes some of my core values at a soul level, but it hasn't arrived yet. I'm not in my dream home. And I have also, I think at least maybe a 2-year point or 3 years into that vision, since I wrote that vision, I did start to question that, oh, maybe this isn't my dream. Maybe this isn't never going to happen for me. This isn't for me. And I really went into those deep doubts about if it was actually going to happen. And I'm sure many of you listening can relate to this, because some of those big things that we desire in our life, whether it's a relationship or whether it's a career fulfillment we're looking for, or whether it is the environmental change that you're after, because they are so big and there is such a gap from where we are currently to where those dreams are and what those dreams are, it can feel like we aren't making any progress, and we can't necessarily see the progress at the moment. So we can really begin to question whether it's ever going to happen. So if you are in that phase, what I would encourage you to do is just to keep going back every so often, every 6 months, every year, just to go back and keep checking that it is still aligned for you, that it isn't coming from your ego, that it is fulfilling and in alignment with your values and for your highest good and for the highest good of everybody else. And if you can say yes to all of those things, then continue to take those small action steps towards that dream, towards that manifestation, whatever that is for you. So in the example of my dream home, I don't know exactly geographically where it's going to be, but I can start to, not just in meditation and visit those places, but I can start taking physical steps like, okay, how am I preparing to pack this house down, ready for that move, right? I love this house that I'm in right now, but I had to learn. And what I noticed about a couple of years ago or so, that because I always had in my mind that I was going to this bigger house, this dream house of mine, even though I have a deep appreciation and gratitude for this home, and I really do. I love it. It gives us everything we need. It provides us with everything and more. The space, just so much, right? It's beautiful. Yet I noticed myself that I was only seeing the flaws in this house, only noticing the things that were wrong with it, and stopped putting in the same attention and care, because in the back of my mind, it was like, well, I'm not staying. I'm getting ready to leave. I'm getting ready to leave to that next home, And I completely dismissed what I had here and the gratitude and the joy and the appreciation for what I really had here and what I'm currently living in. And so I had to shift that dynamics a lot. And it was about, no, okay, well, that's still happening. That's still in my dream. It's still in the plan, but I'm here right now. So what can I do to really pour my love and energy into the space that I'm in right now and really appreciate it and really give the gratitude it deserves, so I can amplify my frequency and become energetically more aligned for then that next step, that next home that I also have a vision for as well. And who knows? That may not happen for another 5 years or another 10 years, but it may also even just happen next year or this year. I don't know. And I've had to learn to just let that go, completely let it go. But also, because I keep checking in and I know it's right for me, I have to have full trust and faith that as long as I'm doing my part here, The universe is not going to let me down. It hears me. It knows what I desire. And as long as I am working towards ensuring that my frequency is becoming a vibrational match for that, then at some point when I am truly ready to hold the container for that kind of dream home, that's when it will arrive. I don't know what's around the corner. So there will be a reason why it is not happening now. And that reason is something that is beyond my sight. But I have to be able to trust that it's not beyond the sight of source, of universe. And it knows that at the moment, it's better for me to be right here. Maybe it's something to do with my family, because my family are close by here. And that dream home, I do not foresee that dream home being in this local area at all, if this country even. So perhaps I need to be here right now for those reasons. And I won't know. I won't know until in the future when I'm able to look back. So know that you're not falling behind. Know that it's just because it hasn't arrived for you now, it isn't a hard no. It's just more of a yes, but not yet. Not now, but it's coming. And also to not doubt your worthiness to receive it, because that can also be something as well that, oh, I knew that dream was too big. I knew it was never going to really happen for me. Once you start allowing that doubt to seep in, then your frequency is going to change and you won't become a vibrational match for what it is you're calling in. And then, yeah, inevitably, you won't be able to call it in, because the signal that you're putting out there is saying, I don't deserve it. I don't deserve it. And so the universe is saying, okay, you don't deserve it. Remember, it mirrors, right? So it's really important to not allow that doubt to seep in, but at the same time, it's really important to keep taking the aligned action and keep checking in that it is the right thing for you as you can best foresee right now. So my few little steps for you to take away, if there is something in your life right now that came to your mind as you were listening and you're thinking, oh yeah, you know, whether that's a career goal, whether it's a relationship, whether it's a health goal, whatever that is in your life, right? These are a few little steps I want you to take away and apply them to whatever it is you're trying to call in. Ask yourself, is there anything that I still need to learn, heal, or practice before this manifestation comes through? And if you're being really honest with yourself, the answer is almost definitely going to be yes. Right? Especially if you are doing this work and you have some level of awareness. So that is, do I still need to learn, heal, or practice anything? The second thing is, does it feel expansive or performative? So that's checking in with the why, checking in that it's really actually aligned and you're not doing it from an ego place. Is it expansive or performative? The third is, am I attached to a particular outcome, a particular result? Whether that be the timing of when and you're holding it rigidly, like it must happen in 3 months, and if it doesn't happen in 3 months, then that's it. I'm going to scrap the idea. That means it's not for me. Or maybe the actual details of what it looks like, that it has to happen a certain way. Because we are not aware with our small minds, our ego selves, exactly what is in our highest interest. And so even though we've really given it a lot of thought, only the universe knows what's truly, truly in our highest self. Only the universe knows what's truly for our best interest, for our highest selves. And so there may be a slightly different version that is going to be a better match for you. So are you holding on to what it is you desire so rigidly, is what we're asking here, and being too particular about what you're asking for? Or are you holding it with an open hand? And then finally, take a look at what's being offered to you right now. What doors are being opened? What doors are being closed? what delays are occurring around this particular manifestation or endings, what new opportunities are there. So notice the kind of things that are happening for you, especially sometimes when you are, I often hear this, somebody is hoping and desiring something in their life, and it feels like it's just a challenge after a challenge after challenge, and a door closing one after another in front of them. If it's more than one door that continues to keep closing every time you try to move in a particular direction, rather than trying to force your way through all of these doors, maybe it's time to stop and say, why? Why are the doors closing here? Maybe I'm moving in the wrong direction here. Maybe I need to be going a little bit more to the right or the left, to the side. Like, what else is available here? What other opportunities are around, even if it's something I haven't previously considered? So have a look at that. Finally, this is really just about trust. Divine timing is about trusting that we are not the only architects of our lives. We absolutely are steering the ship. We are absolutely co-creating it, but that's exactly what it is. We are co-creators. We are not the only ones involved. And so there has to be an element of trust and faith that what is happening all at the right time, exactly as it needs to, as and when it should. And trust is not a feeling. It is a choice that you practice again and again. So choose trust every time. When something doesn't turn out the way you want it to, when something doesn't happen when you want it to, or quite the way you want it to, trust that it is being orchestrated with you for your highest good, and choose trust each and every time and practice trust. Thank you so much. If this landed for you, please take 30 seconds to leave a review. It really genuinely helps more women to find this podcast, and just really appreciate your feedback and your comments as well. Until next week, tune in for the remaining mini-series. So this is actually a 4-part mini-series on trust. Today starting with divine timing. And so please, if you did enjoy this, then tune in and subscribe for next week as well. You'll enjoy that too, I promise. Take care. Bye-bye. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Higher Self Mastery. If something landed, moved you, or sparked a shift, I'd love to hear from you. Be sure to follow, subscribe, and share this episode with a woman in your life that is also ready to rise. And if you found value in today's conversation, please take a moment to rate and review this podcast, especially in these early days. It really helps others to find this work too. If you're craving deeper support and sisterhood, join my mailing list using the link below, where you'll be the first to receive free meditations, learn about up-and-coming retreats, and other ways that we can work together. Until next time, honor your truth and trust in the timing of your becoming.